Hello, everyone. Before we get started today, I want to acknowledge something that's very important to me. In this video, you're going to hear me say Ajike Owens. The correct pronunciation of her name is Ajike Owens. Getting a victim's name right matters to me because it is important that their names are spoken with care. So before we continue, I want to make the correction that her name is Ajike Owens, and it's important that we always get that right. I thank you for your understanding and hope you enjoy the rest of the video.
911 was that I just saw the emergency.
Oh my God, this lady just tried to break down my door. I saw it through the door. Oh my God.
Okay, repeat that address for me to make sure I have it correct.
They were trying to come in my house.
Okay, what's going? Take a deep breath for me. Calm down. Okay, I just need you to lock all your doors and windows, okay?
I have. She's come after me several times because of her children. Her children keep trespassing over here. They're bothering me and bothering me. They won't.
Is she a neighbor?
Yes.
White woman tears have devastated Black communities for decades. From Emmett Till to Rosewood to Tulsa to right in the center of Ocala, Florida. Those tears have justified lynchings, erased lives, and destroyed families. And today, we're talking about one of the most haunting modern echoes of that same pattern, all because some children were simply playing in a football field. Welcome to That's My Opinion, where we break down the biggest stories, uncover hidden truths, and explore why they matter. I'm Bacon Bears, and today we're talking about the killing of Ajike Owens. If you're new here, hit that subscribe button. It's free. It helps us keep telling the stories that matter. As always, this video is for conversational purposes only. Do your own research and form your own opinions because this one's mine. And let's get started. The Netflix documentary, The Perfect Neighbor, opens with body cam footage that immediately pulls you into the chaos. There's flashing lights, neighbors crying, the panicked voice on a 911 call saying, "She got shot." It's haunting, and it sets the tone for everything that follows. I really implore you to watch this documentary. It's a rough watch, but I feel that it's extremely important. And when I tell you I was audibly sobbing, my heart just broke. However, it was very eye-opening in the worst way. When Susan Lorincz moved into an Ocala, Florida rental home in 2020, she brought with her a toxic mix of entitlement and control. She was 58 years old, white, single, and self-proclaimed, quote, peaceful. But within months, she became the neighborhood menace. She started calling the police constantly, claiming that the kids were outside, that they were trespassing, being too loud, or threatening her. And between 2021 and 2023, Marion County deputies responded to her address at least 6 to 8 times. 6 to 8 times. And every single one revolved around Black children simply playing outside. Neighbors told police the same story over and over, that Lorincz would come out onto her porch area, she would yell at the children and film them without their permission. She would use slurs, she would rev her engine at them, she would blast an air horn. Even officers on the scene were fed up. In one clip, an officer mutters under her breath, quote, "What a fucking bitch." And my sentiments exactly, because these are kids. And I've thought about this a lot. I don't know what kind of hateful mindset you have to be in where children playing outside makes you angry. One of the earliest calls dates back to February 25th of 2022. The report said a lady hit her with a sign. Lorincz claimed that she was assaulted over a dispute about a dog, but when officers arrived, nobody had seen that happen. The sign incident was written up as a battery report, but no arrest was made. The woman she accused was a Black mother, a mom who worked full-time, raised her kids with pride, and made sure that they stayed close to home. And that woman was Ajike Owens. AJ wasn't the kind of mom who let her kids just like run amok, okay? She was the mom. She was the one who knew every neighbor. She kept her yard clean. She worked as a manager at McDonald's. She made sure that her children were everywhere that they needed to be, and she was always there for them. She did everything right. But across the street, her white neighbor decided that her joy was a threat. The area these families lived in, it was an open rental neighborhood, a shared space with grassy fields where kids rode bikes, they tossed footballs, and they ran around after school. But Susan insisted that it was her duty, I guess, to police this area, which, don't you have a job? But she would yell profusely that the kids were trespassing, even though she was a renter. It's literally not your land. You don't own that grass, Susan. And yet she built an entire narrative of victimhood around it. From the first false complaint, the police calls just kept coming. August 10th of 2022, she called again, claiming that these children were screaming at her. She started calling herself Dr. Lorincz, demanding respect from kids barely in middle school. Okay, we're talking about anywhere between like 5 and maybe 13. The police tried to explain that it was a public space, that they couldn't stop kids from playing there, but she just would not listen. Dispatchers began recognizing her voice on the line, and her harassment became routine, a part of the department's daily noise, because it's not like they have actual emergencies to tend to. Even the officers seemed to grasp the absurdity of it all, because by then everyone knew that this wasn't about the kids at all. This was about a white woman who couldn't stand that Black families felt at home near her. Now, what I don't understand is if you have such a hatred for a specific community, why would you move into an area that is so diverse and full of the exact people that you despise? As a mother myself, if neighborhood kids are outside laughing or playing ball and the sound of joy irritates you to the point of calling 911, the problem is not the children. And I'm not saying that children don't have to be corrected from time to time. And I've had to do it myself. But you know what I've never done? Called the cops on children for playing. Believe it or not, you can like just talk to them. Lorincz, though, would never try kindness. She would weaponize her fear. She wanted control. And when other mothers confronted her, rightfully furious after she called their kids the R word, she acted shocked. What? How could anyone yell back at me? Her response to police officers was, quote, "I'm a single woman. I work from home. I'm quiet. I'm peaceful. I'm like basically the perfect neighbor. The perfect neighbor who enjoys engaging in verbal altercations with children?" December 22nd of 2022, police were called again to her residence, and again it was about the kids. The reports say she yelled at them. The kids would say that they're just out playing football. Even the officers were done repeating themselves. It's an open field. They would explain it again and again. But Susan didn't care about the law because to her, well, it doesn't apply. And by early 2023, she would get herself a reputation. A neighbor told officers that she would sit by the window recording kids with her phone, ready to call the police if they so much as stepped on that grass. She would yell, she would cuss, and sometimes she would even set off her own car alarm and claim that the children were touching her car even when no one was near the vehicle. Now, what I don't understand is you, Susan, would record these children on a regular basis, yet you have zero evidence of what these children were doing. So I guess your phone wasn't working at that time, was it? Every mother in that neighborhood had reached her limit. They were tired of being polite, but AJ still tried to keep it civil. She told her kids, don't argue with her. She's an adult. You come get me and I'll handle it. And that's the kind of mom that she was. She didn't want her children disrespecting anyone, even someone who clearly disrespected them. By 2023, Susan Lorincz had become the neighborhood's full-time problem. The police knew her, the kids knew her, the parents definitely knew her, and at this point, even dispatch seemed tired of picking up the phone. This woman constantly weaponized her fear, quote, fear. March 14th of 2023, another call is made, but this time it was not Susan claiming that the kids were too loud, but a, quote, lady ramming a gate with her truck. Police arrived to find the gate damaged, severely bent, chain broken, and the license plate on the truck belonged to Susan Lorincz. When they knocked on her door, she didn't answer at first. She just screamed from inside, "Go away!" until they identified themselves as law enforcement. Suddenly, there's a tone shift. She opened the door. She became cooperative. She clutched her little robe. She was almost meek in a way. Just a completely different demeanor change. And that's when the excuses started. She'd claimed she'd been locked in the gated area. She panicked and she rammed it because of her PTSD. She told officers that she had been previously abused, and that just triggered her to feel trapped, and she just panicked. And when the police told her that she had severely damaged that gate and that the property owner wants her to pay for it, her response was, well, my truck is also damaged. It's damaged from you driving through the gate. However, this is that moment that you can start to see that she thinks that, again, the law doesn't apply to her. If she plays the victim and uses fear, that this just all goes away. And let's talk about this for a second. People who use victimhood to dodge accountability. You call the cops on children every 5 minutes. But when you actually break something or do something you're not supposed to, suddenly, all of a sudden, you're just too fragile to be questioned. See, the thing about Susan is that she wasn't just a nuisance. She wanted everyone to believe that she was constantly under threat. By dogs, by children, by neighbors, by anyone who didn't look like her. She even told dispatchers that she feared for her life daily because the kids would yell and threaten her. Again, zero evidence of that coming from somebody who enjoyed recording children that weren't hers. But I digress. April 25th of 2023, another call. Susan claimed that the kids were chasing a dog and harassing her. The kids were calm and they told the police that Susan was yelling, filming. Again, by this point, everyone had nicknamed her the Karen. Sorry, mother-in-law. Sorry to any Karen out there that's not truly a Karen. She's a Susan. Sorry to any Susan. None of this works. Some joked about it. Others were scared of her because they knew that she had a gun. And would you like to know how they found out she had a gun? Yeah, because she openly waved it at all the kids. Just May 22nd of 2023, Lorincz walked into the police station this time, insisting that AJ and her children be arrested. She claimed that the kids burned her sign, and when the police asked for proof, she had none. This was also a sign that said no trespassing in property that was not hers. Now, what I find interesting is that she never once tried to talk to a single adult face-to-face, right? She only ever yelled at the children, and to me, that was a ploy to provoke the mothers. Even if you believed that she was anxious or traumatized, at some point she knew what she was doing. She knew how to push people's buttons and then cry wolf. And that's the oldest story in America. A white woman crying wolf while Black people suffer the consequences. There's something I need to stop and say here, something that's completely bigger than this neighborhood or this one case. Because when I watch women like Ajike Owens, I see what so many Black women in this country are forced to learn early. Their survival isn't just about staying alive. It's about staying controlled. It's about managing other people's perceptions before they decide that you're a threat. Black women have to think twice before raising their voice, before defending their children, before showing frustration, because society has labeled their strength as anger and their passion as aggression. From workplace stereotypes to courtroom bias, from traffic stops to school meetings, Black women have had to master the impossible art of staying calm while being disrespected. And that is an insane amount of pressure. And that's exactly what AJ did. She told her children not to argue with Susan. She knew that if she ever snapped back, even for a second, she'd be called angry or loud or dangerous. She knew that the rules were different for her. And that's what breaks my heart about this the most. Black women aren't allowed to make mistakes. They aren't allowed to show emotion. They have to carry themselves with such grace, even in the face of hate, because history has proven that the moment that they don't, the world stops seeing them as victims and starts painting them as villains. By now, Lorincz had turned the entire street into her stage. She was the misunderstood, terrified single woman surrounded by threatening children. And as the spring of 2023 rolled on, Susan's delusions got darker. Her calls got angrier. Her language got uglier. But the longer she spoke, the more she started saying the quiet part out loud. Slurs, threats, hatred. She called these children the N-word, and yet she faced no consequences because every time she framed herself as scared. Because in this country, white fear has always been louder than black pain. And that's what I mean when I say white woman tears have devastated black communities for decades. Susan's paranoia didn't come out of nowhere. She fed it. She nurtured it. She lived off of it. And every false call would build her confidence, and she thought that she could do whatever she wanted and the system would back her up. She had tested the boundaries again and again, and nothing happened. June 2nd of 2023 was an ordinary Florida evening. Kids are outside, running in that same open field that they always played in, the one everyone knew wasn't Susan Lorinz's property. And they were just kids playing football. They were laughing. They were doing what kids do. But for Susan, this seems to be a trigger. From her window, she watched them again, phone in hand. The kids claimed that she shouted at them, that she swung an umbrella, that she threw roller skates at those children. Roller skates. Who throws objects at kids? But then she would call the police again, claiming, "They're outside. I'm fearing for my life." And I want you to think about something, okay? She was safe and inside of her home, and she was claiming that she was in fear of 7, 9, and 11-year-olds. Now, the kids had said that she had taken Izzy's iPad, and Izzy is one of AJ's sons. He left it near her porch, and she had refused to give it back. So he ran home upset and told his mom. And AJ didn't go over there to fight. She went to get her son's tablet and put an end to whatever this woman thought that she was doing. Susan even said later in an interview with police, which she denies also then later again, but fuck, who cares? She told the kids, "Go get your mom. Go get your mom." So AJ walked up to that house like a mother trying to resolve a problem. She knocked twice, according to witnesses, only twice. But according to Susan, she claimed it was relentless pounding, and she thought that AJ was trying to break down her door. Without opening the door, without confirming who was there, without any visible threat, Susan Lorincz fired a single shot through her locked door. The bullet would hit AJ in the chest, and she fell on the porch while her 9-year-old son was standing right beside her. 911 calls poured in immediately. Neighbors are screaming, kids are crying, and chaos erupted. Susan also called 911, where she sobbed, girl, hyperventilating. She claimed that AJ tried to break in, but when officers arrived and found her sitting safely inside of her own home, the tears are gone. She was calm, composed. How quickly your mood changes, Susan. You can hear the kids in the background of the body cam footage screaming for their mother. Screaming. And this is where I completely lost it. One of the police officers asks AJ's son, "Are you hurt?" And he says, "No, but my heart is broken." Oh, I just goosebumps again. Because if you can watch that footage and feel nothing, please reevaluate your humanity. Please just get out of my chat. Get out of my chat. That scene was gut-wrenching. Now, AJ still had a pulse when deputies arrived and neighbors tried to help, but the damage was too severe. And there's something else that I want you to think about, okay? Knowing that there were children outside, knowing that they played there daily, Susan still fired blindly through that door. How could you pull that trigger not knowing who was standing there? You could have hit a child. And the point is, in my opinion, you simply did not care. The officers would detain her that night, but she wasn't immediately arrested. They wanted to make sure that every piece of evidence was airtight, which I appreciate because we have seen time and time again someone walk free because of some minor misstep from the police, okay? Like they have done some things. They collected video, shell casings, statements, and it was all very consistent. Susan called 911 crying, but there were no tears when the cops put her in the back seat. No shaking hands, no hysteria. There was almost a hint of annoyance. Like the whole thing was an inconvenience. She didn't even cry when she realized that AJ was gone. Someone else just died by your hands and you claim that you didn't mean to do it and you feel nothing? In that moment, the entire neighborhood realized that she had been waiting for this. In my opinion, I think when she told the kids to go get their mom, she had already had a plan. And in the days that followed, the town of Ocala erupted. Protesters stood outside the Marion County Judicial Center demanding Lorintz's arrest. People were furious. It was days before she was booked, and when she finally was, the community already knew what the truth was. Ajike Owens had been killed for being Black, for being a mother, and for daring to demand respect for herself and her children. She wasn't aggressive. She wasn't violent. She was just tired of watching someone bully her kids. And this is what I meant earlier when I said Black women have to survive differently in America. Because AJ did everything right. She followed the rules. But in a world that sees her strength as a threat and as her motherhood as aggression, she never stood a chance against someone who knew that all she had to do to justify violence was cry. On June 7th of 2023, after reviewing videos, forensics, and statements from both the Owens children and neighbors, deputies arrested Susan Lorincz and charged her with first-degree manslaughter with a firearm, culpable negligence, battery, and 2 counts of assault. Sheriff Billy Woods even said Florida's stand your ground law didn't apply here. This was simply a killing. And he's right. There's no self-defense when you shoot through a locked door at an unarmed woman. Now, had Susan ran to her back bedroom, locked that door, and Ajike was somehow inside of this house, that would have been a whole completely different case. But AJ was knocking at her front door outside of her home with her son. The interrogation footage from the perfect neighbor is gross. She tells investigators that she was terrified, that she thought AJ was going to break down the door. She repeats it again and again. But then detectives started asking questions that she did not expect. They ask, would there be any reason someone might have a video of you using the N-word towards these children? And you can see her freeze. And then she's like, well, if they did, then it just slipped out. Ma'am, no. That's not a word that just like slips out of nowhere. That is a word that lives in your vocabulary, okay? It lives in your mouth. It doesn't slip out if it doesn't exist in your regular vernacular. Detectives would go on to confront her with her own contradictions, and she said AJ pounded relentlessly. And then later she told police that she just asked like why I was speaking to her son that way. Every retelling of the story changed just ever so slightly. And then they hit her with the timeline. Ugh, I love a good timeline. Ugh, it's so good. Susan called 911 at 8:54 p.m. to tattle on the children, to which the dispatcher told her police are on the way. That's important. The call then disconnects at 8:59. At 9:01 p.m., another 911 call comes in from Susan stating that she had shot someone. 2 minutes later. 2 minutes between her hanging up and pulling that trigger. 2 minutes where she could have waited for police, but instead she went and got her gun. Or she already had it. If she was really terrified, why didn't you go hide, Susan? Why didn't you go into another room? Why did you not wait for the help that you knew was coming? Detectives would also find out that she researched Florida's stand your ground laws before the shooting. She also had 2 firearms hidden in her trash can after the shooting. So in all of that supposed just shock and trauma, you still had the clarity to put your weapons away before police arrived. And not even away. You shoved them in a garbage can. Detectives gave her a notepad in the interrogation room with a pen, telling her that she could write something to AJ's children if she wanted. They leave the room, they give her some time, and after everything, after killing their mother, after lying to police, she writes just 4 lines. Quote, I am so sorry for your loss. I never meant to kill your mother. I was terrified your mother was going to kill me. I shot her out of fear, unquote. When officers returned to take her into custody, she refuses. She says, no, I can't do this. Over and over and over again as if she has a choice. One officer finally said, you don't have a choice. And she resisted. She whined. She argued. She said, this is ridiculous. And when they finally stood her up to leave, she muttered, I didn't plan this. You didn't plan it, but you sure prepared for it, didn't you? Honestly, I was hoping that they would tackle her and tase her. A girl can dream. The lack of remorse was staggering. Even when she was charged, even when she faced the reality that she had killed a mother in front of her children, she didn't cry. No tears. She didn't grieve. She didn't show guilt. She was calm, almost inconvenienced somehow. Still, Susan had told police about everything that she had saw about herself the day that she was getting charged on Facebook. She's just like zooming around Facebook looking about posts about her, just like what people are saying about her in the public. And one of the officers just, so beautifully, it was the best. He looked at her and right in her face, he said, I see 4 children who no longer have a mother. Yeah, and still just nothing from her, nothing. The trial of Susan Lorincz wasn't just about one shooting. It was about the centuries of bias that built the foundation for it. The state's case was simple. This was not self-defense. It was anger. A woman behind a locked door who had already called the police chose to fire through that door into the chest of a mother. The defense leaned heavily on her past trauma. They brought in a psychology expert who testified that Susan suffered from PTSD and that she had been sexually and physically abused throughout her life. Her sister confirmed a history of abuse and mental illness in their family. And listen, I do not take trauma lightly, but your trauma does not give you the right to traumatize other people. You do not get to use your pain as a weapon. I do not care what you've been through. It does not excuse years of harassment, racial slurs, and eventually killing a mother in front of her kids. Trauma can explain behavior, but it can never justify it. And there's a difference. The jury deliberated for hours reviewing the videos, the evidence, and on August 16th of 2024, an all-white, yes ma'am, an all-white jury found Susan Lorincz guilty of manslaughter. And even though she was found guilty, I'm sure that stings because it's not murder. However, it was the legal charge prosecutors knew would stick. Still, for AJ's family, it was something. It was accountability. And on November 25th of 2024, Judge Robert Hodges sentenced Susan Lorincz to 25 years in prison. When it was time for Lorincz to speak, she stood there holding a folded piece of paper in her hands. And just like that 4-line letter from the interrogation room, it was hollow. She said, I'm so sorry I took AJ's life. I never intended to kill her. Well, she also added, quote, the night I shot the gun, I was confused as to why she was screaming and pounding on my door. Please accept my humble and sincere apologies for this tragedy. Okay. You literally told the kids to go get her. And When reporters asked AJ's family what justice felt like, Pamela said it best. There is no justice when a mother is gone. There is only accountability. Now, when I was looking into why this wasn't charged as a hate crime, here is what I was able to find. Under Florida statute 775085, the state can reclassify a felony as a hate crime only if prosecutors can prove that the offender's prejudice was a motivating factor in committing the crime. If I was a juror, yes, absolutely. I believe that this was racially motivated. However, they would have had to prove beyond a reasonable doubt that Susan Lorincz fired that gun because of Ajike Owens' race, not just because she was angry, scared, or fed up. I mean, do the slurs count? Even though Lorincz had years of documented racist behavior, calling Black children the worst things in the world, I'm sure the prosecutors worried that if they added the hate crime enhancement and they couldn't prove intent solely motivated by race, a jury might hesitate to convict at all. So I understand why they made that safe choice, but it also feels like another moment where the system flinched, because if this isn't a hate crime, what is? Like, how much more proof do you need when someone screams slurs at Black children, waves a gun, and then kills their mother? On the other hand, I guess you don't want her to walk free because of a technicality, but sometimes the system bends so hard to make sure that a conviction sticks that it stops telling the full story. And Ajike Owens' death is about race. This is about race. When the cameras shut off and the reporters went home, Ocala was still grieving. AJ's mother, Pamela Diaz, became the voice that carried this tragedy into the light. From the courthouse steps to the view, Pamela spoke with a calm strength that silenced rooms. At a vigil a year after AJ's death, Pamela told the crowd about the pain that her family still lives with. She spoke about her grandson, just 9 years old, who believes that if he hadn't forgotten his tablet that night, his mother would still be alive. And that guilt should never fall on a child. This is not his burden. It was Susan Lorincz's hate that killed his mother. In the months that followed, Pamela and her family created the Standing in the Gap Fund, a nonprofit designed to help families devastated by racially motivated gun violence. They've used AJ's name to lift others, to make sure her story creates change, not just sorrow. And they didn't stop there. In July of 2025, the Owens family filed a civil wrongful death lawsuit against Susan Lorincz, holding her financially accountable for the life that she stole. Pamela said, "We can't bring her back, but we can make sure that her name means something." And just when you think that this story couldn't possibly get any more disturbing, don't worry, it gets worse. Because even after being convicted, Susan Lorincz still refuses to take responsibility. In November of 2025, Court TV reported that Lorincz had written a 4-page handwritten letter from prison threatening to sue Ajike Owens' family, including her children. According to WCJB News and WFTV Channel 9, that letter dated September 2nd of 2025 claims that AJ's children lied in their depositions and trespassed on her property. Bitch! That was never your property! It doesn't fucking belong to you! I hate you so much. I hate you. I hate you. Imagine being so hateful that after you killed their mother, okay, after you took the most important thing that could ever exist for them, you try to bully them from jail. In that same letter, Lorincz says that she intends to countersue Pamela Diaz, AJ's mother, and the children for slander, libel, and defamation of character. That's you on the body cam, bitch. Okay? So, all right. However, Click Orlando confirmed that as of early November of 2025, no formal countersuit has been filed, but the letter has been entered into the public record. Every generation says the same thing. Never again, right? And yet here we are. White woman's fear has killed Black children, Black men, and now Black mothers. The pattern never changes. Because the story of Ajike Owens didn't just start in 2023, it started more than a century ago, written and rewritten every time a white woman's tears became a death sentence for someone Black. In 1955, that was 10 years before my mom was born, a boy named Emmett Till was lynched in Mississippi, 14 years old, tortured, mutilated, and dumped in a river after a white woman, Carolyn Bryant, lied and said he whistled at her. Decades later, she would confess that it was a lie, but the lie had already done its work. It had already stolen a child. 30 years before that, in 1921, the city of Tulsa, Oklahoma, erupted in flames. A white elevator operator named Sarah Page accused a young Black shoeshiner, Dick Rolland, of assault. Within hours, white mobs stormed the Greenwood district known as Black Wall Street, burning over 1,200 homes, killing as many as 300 people, and erasing an entire generation of Black prosperity. 2 years before that, in Rosewood, Florida, another white woman's lie, Fannie Taylor, sparked the same horror. She claimed a Black man assaulted her, and white mobs burned the town of Rosewood to the ground. Families were hunted, homes were destroyed, churches were leveled. Florida didn't even acknowledge what happened until 1994. I was 9, okay? This was not something that was forever ago. I was 9 years old. And in 1931, on a freight train in Alabama, 9 Black boys were falsely accused of raping 2 white women, Victoria Price and Ruby Bates. The world would come to know them as the Scottsboro Boys. All white juries convicted them without evidence, sentencing some of them to death. And years later, Ruby Bates would just admit that she lied. She just lied. yeah, so fun. But by then, the damage was irreversible. Different towns, different decades, same story. Before we end tonight, I want you to know who Ajike AJ Owens really was. Because when you strip away the headlines, what's left is a woman who loved her children more than anything in this world. AJ was that mom, the one who showed up, the one whose kids always came first, the one who worked extra shifts and still found time to cheer from the bleachers. And she made sure everyone got tucked in at night. She was a manager at McDonald's, not because it was glamorous, but because it paid the bills and it helped her give her kids a better life. She had dreams for them. She worked to make sure that they never went without. Friends and neighbors said that she was the kind of mom who could light up a room, that her laughter carried across the yard, and that she was the first to help, the first to speak up, and the last to give up. AJ was 35 years old, a daughter, a sister, a friend, a mother to 4 beautiful children. Her mother, Pamela, said that AJ wasn't just her child, she was her best friend. She loved life, she loved her family, and she loved being a mom. But her story doesn't end with a gunshot. It ends with a movement, with a foundation in her name. The Standing in the Gap Fund, helping other families navigate the same kind of racial violence that destroyed hers. It ends with her mother's courage, her children's resilience, and a community that refuses to let her memory fade. If you want to help, I've linked verified resources below, including the Standing in the Gap Fund. Make sure to like and subscribe for more deep dives like this on Bacon Bears. And that's my opinion.